I did bring down with me today, oh my god, you should see this. Oh, I think I need to put this camera down and try and take a photo of that. Hang on. I've just had a chance to look at those photos that I took when I was in Ondaroa, and I realised that the photos that I liked the most were not the ones of just that rock out in the sea, but actually of my wife and son in the water with a sort of dreamy, hazy, ethereal kind of look to it, and it told more of a narrative to me. Now I'm now in Galicia. And it's lovely here, the beaches are amazing and empty, and I thought it's evening and the light right now on this particular beach where I am right now is fantastic, and so I thought I'd try and recreate some of those images that I took, not recreate them, but something along the same theme. The other day I put the shutter speed slow but relatively quick. So the shots of just the rock, obviously the rock ain't going anywhere. So I had that on around about 15 seconds. And when I was taking the people, I had that on around about 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds off the top of my head. But today I was having it more around 5 seconds. So a much longer exposure for people, for having people in the shot. And so we'll see how that turns out. It might be ridiculous, but anyway, that's what I've done. At first I shot some people with the camera on a tripod and a 5-second shutter speed. You can see some of the results here. Because the movement of the subjects was unpredictable, after composing my image I took several frames with the hope that I might achieve some interesting shots with just the right amount of subject movement. These had some of the ethereal qualities that I was looking for, but even small movements from the subjects are picked up and make the results heavily dependent on chance. I had on an ND64 neutral density filter to achieve those longer shutter speeds. I changed to a wider aperture with a slightly slower shutter speed of 2 seconds, so I still had that dreamy movement introduced, but without so much movement that people became washed out. This final image was my preferred one. Pretty much by chance, Ma kept still for the full 2 seconds, so was relatively sharp against the other person in the frame, Sonia, whose additional movement adds an interesting extra narrative dimension for me. Ma's serious expression adds to the narrative in my view. As an aside, I should say that photographing people while they're deep in conversation is a tactic I often employ because I think people are at their most open and honest in terms of their facial expression when they're having a deep conversation with someone and they don't realise that you're taking their photograph. To me, they end up often looking like a still from a film, and so it's one I always keep in my back pocket. I took some further shots of Luca by the water, which I liked for their simplicity, but they lack the narrative of the two people shots. I haven't directed the subjects at all. I haven't told them stand there, stand still, do this or do that. I'm just taking a photograph of them there naturally, which is what I did the other day, and I'm doing it again today. So because of that, I'm really reliant on what I can capture in the moment. As well as those more ethereal shots that I took of my travelling companions using a tripod and a slow shutter speed, I took some straighter shots as well. In these people shots, I opened the aperture up wide and had a very fast shutter speed, around 1/2000th of a second each time. In most of these shots I had the aperture wide open at 1.4 on a 24mm lens, shifting the focal point towards the people. In these images the sea and the beach is a backdrop to the main action, which is the people. Either in an informal setting or a more formal setting, having a relatively featureless and neutral background really lends itself to people photography because it draws all the attention to the person. The shallow depth of field accentuates this. I've gone into more detail in another video on beach portraiture, which I'll link to in the notes. I think the light still makes a huge difference. These images only really worked with the soft diffuse side light I had there right before sunset. Most of the light was behind the mist and the clouds. There's a narrative being told here as well, as in the earlier shots, as the three people stare out to the calm sea, but I think it's a different narrative to that told with the more ethereal shots with the longer shutter speed. These photos I took handheld, gave me much greater freedom to move around my subject, change my perspective than when I had my camera on a tripod. So which do you prefer, the ones with the longer shutter speed or the ones with the really fast shutter speed? Let me know in the comments. So I want to talk about landscape photography for a bit, because I think it's the form of photography that many people feel that they can have a go at, especially as it doesn't involve dealing with any people. And if you're a bit of an introvert like I am, then that's a bonus, right? But I think landscape photography is one of the hardest things to get right. Translating a beautiful vista into a worthwhile photograph is a difficult thing to do, and the reason why there are so many YouTubers out there telling us how to take good landscape shots is because it is a difficult thing to do. But what's even more interesting to me is my changing attitude towards landscape photography. I've been seriously taking photographs now for more than 4 decades, and my opinions have certainly changed in that time. When I was much younger, and this is well before the invention of social media, so none of this was ever recorded, I was always very bored by landscape photography. To me, it was devoid of meaning, of impact. It never really told me anything about the human condition. It lacked narrative. At best, it was a pretty picture, and at worst, it was just plain dull. That was my attitude towards landscape photography. To me, good photography, and I probably still have this opinion, should tell us something about the human condition. It should contain narrative, and it should have some form of meaning that we can glean from it. If not, it's just illustration. For that reason, I pretty much ignored landscape photography for many years. The only time I ever made a landscape photo was sort of by accident when I was doing something else. My focus was on humans, human experience, and narratives around humans. To be honest, that's probably still my main interest. But as I've got older, I think I've mellowed a lot. And one of the fallacies that I think about young people, when you're finishing school, university, in your 20s, whatever, is that you're really open to everything and trying new things and all that kind of stuff that we associate with young people, which I have no doubt is true, and you are discovering yourself at that point. But what I found personally is that the older I get, the more accepting and more open I am to all manner of things that I wasn't open to when I was younger. And I think as you get older, you appreciate, well, it's like the more that you learn, the more that you realize that you don't actually know, and you come to appreciate that. Anyway, I'm rambling now. The point being that I've come to appreciate landscape photography a lot more. Well, certainly more than I did when I was younger. And I think there's 2 reasons for that. One is because I appreciate the sort of craft of it, and I realize now that translating a beautiful vista into a great landscape photo is a difficult thing to do, and when you get it right, it's very pleasing. But secondly, I think I've come to appreciate the sort of the beauty, the tranquility, the sense of meditation that you get from a decent landscape photograph, and what that can give you, that you can inject your own narrative into that whole scene itself. So all of this is especially so for seascapes, and anyone who's followed my channel or my social media will know that that's where I focus my attention for all of my photography, but particularly when it comes to landscapes, it's seascapes. So that's what I was doing on this particular day, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. So in between taking all those photographs of the people I've already shown you, I was taking these photographs of the landscape that was all around. Again, a slow shutter speed achieved with the use of a neutral density filter and a tripod. The main aim here was to smooth out the water, which was already pretty calm, and capture a relatively simple landscape. There was a group of small islands offshore, which made for a small point of interest in the vast sea and the sky, and I accentuated the darkness of these in post-processing in Lightroom. I also pointed the camera towards the sea and the shore. I think it helps even in these relatively empty shots to get some points of reference in for scale. The idea here was to get different patches of textured areas, the sky and the sea, which meet together with the sun kissing the horizon and small points of rocky interest. To me, the simplicity and the blankness of the scene leaves the path open for the viewer to inject their own thoughts, emotions and narrative into the photo. Predominantly, I think my intention is really to recreate the peace, calm and the serenity that I feel when I'm by the sea. I did take some very simple shots towards the end with just the sky and the sea separated by that amazing horizon line. The detail of these photographs is all in the textures of the sea and the sky. At the same time, narratively simple but texturally complex. I've just been taking a few more shots looking this way, looking all around really. And that's what I was saying the other day. I think it's really important to, when you're in a situation, you've got the camera out, you've got it on the tripod, you've got your filters on, you've got everything set up, to just turn it around, see what else is out there. You know, because you get a completely different perspective from one angle as from the other angle. So that brings me to the conclusion of this video on the photographs that I took on this beach in Galicia on this particular day. The star of the show here really to me was the light. The light on this particular day was absolutely superb, and it goes without saying that without the light I couldn't have made these photographs. I can't resist right now showing these couple of shots that I took whilst I was going to and from the beach at the same time. The key things here, the beauty of the light, the simplicity of the subject, whether it's the person in the shot, the lighthouse, a fish, a great big fish thing for collecting rubbish, or two portaloos that I spotted at the end. I just couldn't get enough of this place and of this light. I hope you've enjoyed this little explanation of the photographs I took here. If you have liked it, I'd appreciate if you leave me a comment, let me know what you think. If you like this sort of stuff, I've got a lot of photos still to edit. It takes such a long time and loads of videos to edit, so I'm going to make them into videos. They're coming up soon, so hopefully I'll see you in the next one, and until then, bye bye.